Okay, here's a quick video of the fermentation chamber I built. First thing you have is a 1x4 collar with the 2x4 base. I attached the 2x4 base to the collar, and then you'll see the video begin there with the framing around it.
Your typical dorm fridge. I took the door off. The door's hanging out over here. There's two pins at the bottom. You just unscrew those that pin, and the hinge will come off, and it'll leave you with this opening here. Now what I did first is I went ahead and I built a collar, in this case out of 1x4, and I screwed those together. What I did was I screwed the top into this lip. This particular fridge has a little bit of a extended lip, so I screwed those into that. There's no coils or anything in there, nothing to worry about. So that kind of holds it in place just temporarily. I did put sealant and sealed it. Built a base, and that's a couple 2x4s and a 1/2 inch plywood deck, and screwed those together, made the base. Then what I did was I took some 1/2 inch ply and I started just measured from the beginning of the collar here and the edge of the fridge out, screwed that to the side, and the whole purpose was wanted to limit the amount of framing. This is a pretty light duty application, so you don't really need a lot of framing. And I want to keep it pretty simple because the bulk of the work is going to be done by this foam insulation. You can see this is foil. This is available at Lowe's, 1.5 inch thick, and that's going to be lined on the inside. And whenever you do that, you always want to remember foil set on the end. That's what keeps the coolant in. So I'm going to cut that to size, glue those in place, put a 1/2 inch plywood top, and then build a door. And the door is just going to be very simple. I'm just going to screw a few hinges on the side here and have it swing open and close and latch it. And that's pretty much it. The temperature control is going to be with the typical analog or digital thermostat control, power control that you get with the probe, temp probe. And I think because this particular fermentation chamber is going to have 3 carboys, I'm going to mount a fan either near the front so that the cool air blows and properly circulates, so that there's not a large temperature difference between that end and this end. Alright, look forward to the rest of the video. So you can see now that I've gone ahead and lined the sides and the roof of the fermentation chamber with the insulation. Very basic, was planning on using glue, but the way I made it work actually was able to friction fit everything in place, so it's a nice tight fit. And then I just put a couple of screws, some drywall screws with a big washer on it so that it didn't puncture the insulation. You can use glue there, they do sell insulation panel glue, and you can glue that to the sides if you want, but I didn't need to do that. It's nice and tight, it's not going anywhere. The other thing I did is I got some insulation foam. This is the Hilti 810, and you can just put that in on any of the joints, and you have a little bit of a gap. And what I'll do then is I'm also going to line the bottom and then work on the door. And our build is pretty much done. Like I said previously, I'm going to also install a fan, and I'm going to put the fan right at the front of the refrigerator unit so that it blows the cold air out into the new space. Okay, so we're going to be mounting the fan here. I think what I'm going to do is mount it pretty close to the back, right up in the beginning of the foam insulation there. This is from Radio Shack. It was about 20 bucks. This is a 4-inch fan. You probably don't need such a big fan, but it all depends. I wanted to get good circulation, so you can save a little bit of money. Also, if you have an old CPU, you can take the fan out of that. And I was being lazy. I just went to the store and got it, but I could have also done that. So it comes wired like this, and all I did was I cut some old Christmas lights that didn't work, and I'm going to just go ahead and cut the ends off there, splice it, heat shrink the tubing, so that'll be good. I'll run the wire through the back and go from there. So I'll mount this here in a little bit, and you guys will see how it runs. Okay, so I've been able to mount the cooling fan on. What I did was I used these 2-inch L-angle brackets and measured the distance, mounted those up with some drywall screws into the 3/4 pine through the foam. And the best way to prevent gouging large holes in the foam is to use a sleeve anchor and just tape those shut. So the typical sleeve anchor you could use is like a drywall anchor, and to prevent the expansion, just tape it, and that way it will help you not gouge a big hole in your insulation. So that's mounted, it's wired up. I've gone through and taped off all the joints on the inside along the edges, and this doesn't have to be perfect, this is just to create a seal. And so what I'm going to do now is to install the door. I'll put those on some hinges, and fermentation chamber is done. So that's going to get wired up. I'll quickly talk about the wiring. As I mentioned before, I used Christmas light wire. I have a hole here for that. I'm just going to seal that off. And this is going to plug into this 3-piece unit here. What we have is the analog controller, Johnson Controls. There's a digital and an analog. This was about $60, so it's a little bit cheaper. And there's a temp probe, so I'm going to drill a hole for the temp probe. So that'll be inside the fridge, monitoring the temperature. And this is a little dial that allows you to set that. So everything gets plugged in to here, plugged into the wall, and it'll kick on along with the fan when the temperature reaches the set parameter. Well, here it is in action. Got everything installed. This is the brown ale. So I got the cooling working, and the cooler's pretty good. I got the actual temp turned all the way up to max, so it runs less frequent. As far as the door, what I ended up doing was installing this L angle here and a wedge, and so pretty basic, primitive, but like I said, I got the insulation on the door, and all I'm going to do is just slide that in, friction fit, push that up against the door there, and that just locks in place. So it's nice and tight. There's no leakage here along the edges, and it works so far. It works great. Like I said, I can keep an eye on it, but what I'm going to do is just use a towel for now and close this so there's no light that gets into the beer. Eventually I'll probably have just a Velcro cover to keep the light blocked out.